The Council's doubt. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was filled with voices of countless species, each one debating the same question that had lingered for centuries: which race was brave or foolish enough to attempt the taming of a Deathworld beast? The Deathworlds were known across the galaxy as cursed spheres, planets where every breath carried poison and every living creature was born in violence. Even the most advanced civilizations had failed to last more than a few days upon such surfaces. To the Council, the Deathworlds existed as living reminders that not everything in the universe was meant to be conquered. When humanity rose to the stars, they came with a history unlike others. They had survived ice ages, plagues, wars, and endless cycles of struggle upon their homeworld Earth, itself regarded as a borderline Deathworld. Yet when humans stepped into the Council chamber and declared their intention to tame the beast that no other race dared to approach, the chamber filled with laughter and disbelief. The Shavrians sneered, their elongated jaws clattering in amusement. The Clith, with their cold reptilian eyes, hissed insults about fragile human bones and weak hearts. Even the wise old Quarren, who rarely mocked anyone, muttered that humanity was too young, too reckless, and would meet a quick end. But the humans did not falter. Their representative, a tall woman named Commander Aria Holt, stood with unshaken resolve. She spoke not of glory but of survival, of the human way of facing the impossible and learning from it. She declared that her people would attempt what the galaxy thought insane, because only through trial by fire did humanity grow stronger. Her words carried a quiet weight, not of arrogance but of certainty. The laughter died into murmurs, and though the Council still dismissed her, a seed of unease had been planted. The challenge was accepted, and so it was written into the record that a team of humans would travel to Valar Prime, one of the most hostile Deathworlds known. It was a planet wrapped in storms of crimson dust, a place where lightning struck oceans of acid and forests screamed as predators hunted each other endlessly. At its heart lived the creature that no species dared to name directly, calling it only the beast. Legends told of its hide thicker than metal, of claws that cut through armor, of eyes that glowed with ancient rage. It was said to be older than empires, a survivor from a time when even stars were young. The day humanity announced their expedition, the galaxy waited for the inevitable disaster. Council members wagered how long the humans would last. Some predicted hours, others perhaps a day. The alien press spread stories of human arrogance and foolishness, painting them as children playing with fire. Yet in secret, there were a few who watched with curiosity. They had seen something in human history that unsettled them. The way humanity never stopped adapting no matter the pain. Perhaps this attempt would end in death like the others, but perhaps, just perhaps, something different would happen. As Commander Holt and her chosen team prepared for departure, Earth was silent. Humanity did not cheer nor boast. They simply packed their gear, studied the maps, and said their quiet goodbyes. To them, this was not about impressing the galaxy. It was about proving once again what it meant to be human. When the transport ship lifted into the void, the Council chamber fell silent for the first time in memory. Behind the laughter and doubt, there was now a faint trace of fear. The chosen expedition. The human expedition team was small but carefully selected, each member chosen not for strength alone, but for endurance, adaptability, and the quiet ability to think differently under pressure. Commander Aria Holt led with calm determination, her eyes fixed on the mission rather than the noise of doubters. Alongside her was Dr. Elias Grant, a biologist who had spent years studying hostile ecosystems on Earth, and who believed that life, no matter how terrifying, could be understood if one was patient. Then there was Sergeant Marcus Vey, a soldier, hardened by countless battles, who carried scars across his body as reminders of what survival truly meant. Two engineers, Kalen Ross and Mira Zhao, completed the core team, their minds focused on building and repairing anything that might give the humans an edge on a world where technology itself often failed under constant stress. Their vessel entered orbit above Valar Prime, and the alien observers stationed on nearby cruisers watched eagerly. Many transmitted live feeds back to their people, eager to show the beginning of what they expected to be humanity's downfall. From orbit, the planet looked like a burning wound across space. Great red storms raged across its surface, swallowing entire mountain ranges in dust. The seas were black and boiling, thick with minerals that choked even automated probes. Yet the humans looked down upon this chaos with a strange calmness, almost as if they were staring at an old enemy they had finally come to meet. The descent was violent. Their dropship rattled as winds slammed into it with the force of 1,000 storms. Alarms screamed, systems flickered, but the humans held their ground, each gripping their stations as the craft tore through the choking atmosphere. Finally, the dropship broke through and landed hard upon a plateau of jagged stone, the ground trembling as if the planet itself rejected their presence. Outside, the sky glowed with a permanent twilight hue, storms rolling endlessly across the horizon. The air was heavy, filled with a strange metallic taste, and every sound seemed amplified. From the crack of distant thunder to the low growls that echoed across the barren landscape, the humans wasted no time. Tents and sensor arrays were deployed. Drones were released to scout the area, and defensive positions were quickly established. Commander Holt knew hesitation would mean death. Already the local ecosystem stirred at their arrival. Insects the size of fists swarmed toward their lights, forcing Mira and Kalen to activate countermeasures. From beyond the cliffs, shapes moved, predators drawn to the scent of intruders. The humans stood together, weapons ready, but also observing carefully. Unlike most species that came to Valar Prime, they were not there to kill everything that moved. They were there to learn, to watch, to endure until the beast revealed itself. The first night tested them immediately. The temperature dropped so sharply that the ground cracked and froze in patterns like shattered glass. Howls rose from the distant canyons, and shadows circled the camp just beyond the lights. Sergeant Marcus never slept, his rifle steady as he watched figures shift in the darkness, never striking but always waiting. Dr. Elias collected samples from the frozen air, his voice steady as he explained how the strange microorganisms could survive such extremes. Mira and Kalen worked through the night repairing equipment damaged by the descent, while Commander Holt kept the team's focus sharp. They did not speak of fear, though each of them felt it press against their bones. By morning the storm had lessened and the horizon revealed something far more terrifying than the night. Across the plain lay colossal footprints, each one deep and wide enough to swallow a human whole. The ground cracked beneath their edges, and strange fluids shimmered where the beast had passed. The team stood silent as they examined the trail, for this was no ordinary predator. It was a creature that moved mountains when it walked. The aliens watching from orbit gasped as images of the footprints were transmitted, and already whispers spread through the galaxy. Humanity had stepped onto the trail of the Deathworld beast, and for the first time in generations, the question was not if the hunters would be killed, but how long they could endure the chase, yet the humans did not falter. Commander Holt's voice was calm as she ordered preparations to follow the trail. Elias smiled faintly, whispering that every great predator had a pattern, a rhythm, and that if one listened long enough, it could be understood. Sergeant Marcus tightened his armor, straps, and nodded in silence. Mira and Kalen checked their gear one last time, ready for whatever awaited them. Together they moved forward, deeper into the heart of Valar Prime, their figures swallowed by the crimson storm as the eyes of the galaxy followed in tense silence. First contact with the beast, the trail of the beast carried the humans deeper into the wilderness of Valar Prime, where the storms thickened and the ground itself seemed alive. The dust under their boots pulsed faintly with heat, as if the planet's heart beat just below the surface. Strange crystalline plants bent toward them, releasing sharp hissing sounds as though warning intruders to turn back. The team pressed on, their gear layered with red grit, their lungs aching from the heavy metallic air. Every step reminded them that survival here was a battle not just against creatures but against the very world itself. After hours of careful movement, the team reached a canyon that split the ground like a wound stretching into darkness. The footprints of the beast descended into its depths, claw marks tearing at the rock walls as though the creature had leapt into the chasm without fear. Commander Holt ordered ropes anchored while Sergeant Marcus kept guard, his eyes locked on shadows shifting across the cliffs. Strange avian predators circled above, their wings crackling with static energy, but they did not descend. Even they seemed wary of what lingered below. The descent into the canyon was slow, the air growing colder and the silence heavier with each meter. When the team touched ground, they felt the earth tremble in pulses, a rhythm too steady to be mere quakes. Dr. Elias placed his hand on the stone and whispered that the beast was near, its heartbeat echoing through the world. They advanced with weapons ready but did not fire at the sounds that came from the darkness. Unlike the alien species that had attempted before them, the humans did not come to provoke the monster into charging. They came to understand it, to test patience against instinct. Then it appeared. At first, only the glow of its eyes could be seen, twin orbs of molten amber burning through the shadows like suns trapped in the body of a predator. The ground shook as its form emerged, a colossal figure covered in armored hide that shimmered like metal under the faint light of the humans' lamps. Its claws scraped against stone, throwing sparks, and its breath roared through the canyon like a storm. The Deathworld beast towered over them, its size dwarfing any predator recorded in galactic history. For the alien observers, the sight was unbearable, many cutting their transmissions in fear. For the humans, it was the moment they had been waiting for. The beast advanced slowly, its eyes locked on the intruders. Marcus gripped his rifle but did not fire, holding steady under Holt's calm command. Dr. Elias raised a small sensor, scanning the rhythm of its movements, whispering about patterns in its steps and how its posture shifted not with hunger, but with caution. It did not charge at once, as legends claimed, but circled them, sniffing the air, testing their reactions. The humans remained still, their hearts pounding but their discipline unbroken. They had faced predators before, smaller perhaps, but governed by the same primal instincts. Fear was a language, and the beast was listening for it. When the creature roared, the sound shook dust from the canyon walls and threatened to shatter their bones. Yet instead of answering with violence, Commander Holt stepped forward. She lowered her weapon, her stance firm but not aggressive, her gaze steady on the monster's glowing eyes. For a long moment, predator and human stared at one another, and the air thickened with tension so strong even the alien observers in orbit fell silent. Then the beast stopped circling. It lowered its massive head slightly, exhaling a breath that swept over the humans with heat and stench of raw power. The ground ceased trembling, and for the first time the impossible seemed possible. The Deathworld beast had not killed them. It had acknowledged them. The humans knew this was only the beginning. The creature was testing them, weighing them, deciding if they were prey or something else entirely. The galaxy waited for the sound of screams, but instead they heard only the heavy rhythm of human boots stepping closer to the impossible. The first fragile steps toward an unthinkable bond, the struggle of survival. The canyon became their proving ground as the humans moved carefully through its shadowed depths, with the beast never straying far behind. It did not strike, but it followed, a living storm that tested their courage with every step. The air grew thick with ash and poisonous vapors that made their throats burn and their eyes sting. Yet they pressed forward because turning back would mean both failure and death. Alien observers whispered across the galaxy that the humans had been spared only for a moment, and that the beast would strike when hunger took it. But already those same voices trembled with doubt because the humans had lasted longer than any. Before them, the trials of the world pressed down hard. At night, the temperature plunged so sharply that ice grew upon their equipment, shattering fragile circuits. Mira and Kalen worked endlessly to repair life support units and stabilizers, their hands numb from cold but steady with purpose. Sergeant Marcus guarded the perimeter without rest, watching shapes move in the darkness as other predators tested the edges of their camp. More than once he fought off creatures with claws like spears and hides like armor, his rifle flashing in the storm of dust. Yet always the beast lingered at a distance, watching not as hunter but as judge. During one night, as the humans huddled around a dim heat source, betrayal struck. From the cliffs above, a flare ignited the sky, not human, but alien. A rival faction had followed them to the Deathworld, believing that humanity's attempt would end in failure, and seeking to profit from their corpses and whatever data they had gathered. They unleashed drones armed with plasma cutters, machines, that descended on the human camp with merciless precision. For a moment it seemed as though the Council's mockery would prove true. that humans would die not by the beast but by the treachery of other species. But humans had always known betrayal, and they had always adapted. Marcus roared commands as Holt ordered a counter-assault. Kalen redirected power from broken drones to create shields that glowed faintly in the dust storm. Mira hacked into the hostile machines with trembling fingers, turning them against their masters. Elias, unarmed except for his mind, shouted instructions about weak points he observed as patterns of movement, his words guiding Marcus's aim. The battle raged in the canyon, red light flashing against stone as humanity fought not with superior technology, but with stubborn creativity. Then the ground shook once more, louder than before, and the beast entered the battle. Its massive body surged into the canyon, claws tearing machines apart with a force no weapon could match. For a terrible instant, the humans thought it would kill them as well, but instead it ignored them entirely, its rage focused on the invaders. Aliens watching from orbit screamed in disbelief as the legendary creature that had slaughtered countless explorers now stood beside humans in fury against a common foe. The drones shattered like paper beneath its claws, and their masters fled, leaving only silence behind. When the dust cleared, the humans stood alive though battered. Marcus's armor was torn and his arm burned from plasma fire. Mira's hands bled from torn gloves and raw wires. Kalen's chest rose in shallow breaths from exhaustion. Elias clutched samples and data as though they were treasure. Holt stood, tall despite fatigue, her eyes meeting the burning gaze of the beast. For a long moment no one moved. The monster had saved them, whether by coincidence or choice, none could yet say. But it lingered still, its breath heavy in the cold night, its eyes never leaving the small group of humans who had refused to break in that silence. The team understood something had changed. They were no longer merely intruders trespassing upon the Deathworld. They had been measured and tested by both betrayal and the elements, and still they endured. The beast had seen it, and though its mind was unknowable, its actions spoke louder than words. It had not destroyed them when it could have. It had chosen to stand against their enemies. The galaxy could not yet see it, but the bond had begun, unexpected bond. The days that followed were unlike anything the humans had experienced before. The beast did not leave them after the battle, but instead remained close, circling the camp at night and watching from the cliffs during the day. Its glowing eyes followed every move they made, not with the hunger of a predator but with the awareness of something curious. The team moved cautiously, never raising weapons against it, understanding that aggression would shatter the fragile moment that had formed between them. Commander Holt ordered the group to act as though the beast were another part of the environment, something to be respected rather than feared, and slowly the rhythm of their survival began to change. Dr. Elias was the first to take a step further. He began leaving small offerings at the edge of the camp, fragments of food, water purified through their filters, and materials that emitted warmth. He spoke softly when placing them down, as though addressing not a monster, but a guest. At first, the beast ignored these gestures, its massive form unmoved by scraps from fragile hands. But on the third day, when the humans returned from gathering resources, the offerings were gone. In their place, deep claw marks etched into the stone in a strange deliberate pattern. Elias studied them for hours, convinced it was more than random scratching. Convinced the creature had responded. Sergeant Marcus doubted at first, his soldier's instinct warning him against trust. Yet one night, when predators descended upon the camp in a sudden attack, the beast struck again, tearing through the assailants before they could overwhelm the humans. Its fury was terrifying, yet its rage was not directed at them. When the attack ended and the camp was secure, the beast stood in silence at the edge of the firelight, its body scarred and steaming from its own wounds. For the first time, Marcus lowered his rifle and saluted it, a gesture born of respect. The beast did not move, but it did not leave either, and from that night forward the soldier no longer saw it as only a threat. Mira and Kalen began studying the creature in their own way, using their equipment not to track it as prey but to learn its patterns of movement and body signals. They noticed how it slowed near Elias when he spoke calmly, how it reacted less aggressively when Holt approached with steady posture and open hands, how its breathing changed when Marcus saluted. It was not domestication, not yet. But it was something stranger, something the galaxy had believed impossible. The Deathworld beast was responding not with instinct alone, but with recognition. The aliens observing from orbit struggled to understand what they were seeing. Across the galaxy, broadcasts filled with disbelief. For centuries, the beast had been a symbol of untamable destruction, yet now it lingered close to humans without slaughtering them. Some called it manipulation. Others claimed the images were false, but the Council could not deny what their own sensors confirmed. Humanity had survived longer than anyone expected, and the beast itself seemed to have chosen not to kill them. It was a truth too large to ignore one evening. As storms tore across the horizon and the team huddled around a fire, the beast stepped closer than ever before. Its colossal form blocked the wind, shielding the humans as though it too sought warmth. The air shook with every breath it released, but no one moved to flee. Holt stood slowly, her eyes locked with its molten gaze. For a heartbeat, the galaxy seemed to hold its breath, and then the creature lowered its head, resting it upon the ground only a few meters away. Dust swirled around them, and the sound of the storm faded as though the world itself knew this moment. Mattered, Elias whispered that trust had begun. Holt raised her hand slowly, stopping just short of its armored hide, respecting the space between them. The beast did not strike. It remained still, its eyes half closed, its breath steady. Around, the firelight Marcus, Mira, and Kalen watched with awe, realizing they were no longer merely surviving the Deathworld but changing it. A bond had formed where none should exist, and the galaxy that laughed at humans now waited in silence, fearful of what it might mean. The proving ground word of the bond between humans and the Deathworld beast spread quickly across the galaxy, and fear began to grow in places where laughter once ruled. The Galactic Council did not want to admit what they were seeing, yet the evidence could not be denied. The beast, once thought to be pure destruction, now moved with humans and did not kill them. Whispers turned into arguments, and arguments into demands. Many species called for a final test to prove the truth, insisting that the humans had not truly tamed the monster, but only delayed their own death. Others feared what humanity could become if they had truly done the impossible. In the end, the Council agreed on a proving ground, a challenge designed to strip away illusion and reveal whether the bond was real or nothing more than chance. The humans were summoned back to the canyon rim where alien crafts circled above, watching from the skies. The Council had released other predators from across Valar Prime, creatures equal in ferocity to the beast but smaller, faster, more numerous. They came in swarms of taloned flyers, in packs of four-legged hunters with acid dripping from their maws, in serpents that slithered through the ash and struck like lightning. The challenge was simple in words but deadly in truth. Survive the trial or be forgotten as another failed attempt. If the beast truly recognized them, it would fight at their side. If not, the humans would perish before the eyes of the Galaxy Commander. Holt did not falter as she stood with her team, their armor battered, their supplies low, yet their spirit unbroken. Sergeant Marcus tightened his grip on his weapon, his voice calm as he promised they would endure whatever came. Elias whispered about patterns, about how predators revealed their intent in rhythm and sound, his eyes alight with fascination, even in the face of death. Mira and Kalen readied their devices, adjusting energy fields and deploying drones to provide cover. Around them, the beast prowled in slow circles, its glowing eyes scanning the horizon, its claws gouging stone as though sensing the storm of predators drawing near. The first wave came with shrieks that pierced the air. Dozens of winged creatures dove from the crimson sky, their bodies lined with jagged bone. The humans raised their weapons, but before they could fire, the beast roared, a sound so powerful it shattered the swarm's formation. It leapt with impossible speed, its claws tearing through wings, its jaws crushing bones. The humans moved with it, Marcus picking off stragglers, Mira directing drones to blind the attackers, Kalen reinforcing shields against acid blood that rained from the sky. For the first time, the humans and the beast fought not as enemies but as one force. More predators surged from the canyon floor, Slithering serpents coiled around the camp, striking with fangs that dripped venom hot enough to melt metal. Elias shouted warnings, recognizing their rhythm, guiding the team to dodge and strike at precise moments. The beast crushed serpents beneath its massive limbs, swinging its tail like a hammer to shatter stone and flesh. Holt stood at its side, issuing commands that blended human discipline with the raw fury of the monster itself. Together they created chaos that none of the council had expected. The trial stretched for hours. Wave after wave descended, yet none broke the bond. Every strike from the beast gave the humans a chance to breathe, and every tactic from the humans gave the beast an edge it had never known. Blood stained the ground, smoke filled the canyon, and still they stood. When the final pack of hunters charged, larger than the others and driven mad with rage, the beast and Marcus surged together, man and monster cutting a path side by side. The hunters fell, one after another, until silence returned to the proving ground. When the dust settled, the humans stood unbroken, their armor scarred, their faces marked by exhaustion, yet their eyes burned with victory. The beast loomed over them, its breath steady, its body wounded but still powerful, and it lowered its head toward Commander Holt in a gesture seen by every observer across the galaxy. The meaning was undeniable. The monster had chosen them. The humans had not only survived the proving ground, they had redefined it. The council chamber fell into silence as the galaxy realized the impossible had happened. Humanity had walked into the heart of death and returned not alone but with death itself at their side. Humanity's revelation. The proving ground was over, but the echoes of its battle rippled across the stars. Every channel of communication buzzed, with disbelief as images spread of humans standing side by side with the beast of Valar Prime. The council chambers that once roared with laughter now sat in uneasy silence. No amount of denial or excuses could erase what had been witnessed. Humanity had endured where all others had fallen, and more than that, they had formed a bond that defied reason. The beast was no longer just a monster of legend. It was proof that humans could reach where no other species dared. When the transport carrying the expedition returned to the council station, the docking bays overflowed with representatives desperate to see with their own eyes. The humans emerged battered and scarred yet standing tall, their uniforms torn but their eyes sharp with the fire of survival. And behind them, the beast followed. Each step of its colossal body made the station tremble. Its glowing amber eyes swept across the gathered aliens who recoiled in terror, some stumbling to the ground as the monster's shadow fell upon them. But the beast did not strike. It walked with the humans calmly as though it belonged among them. Commander Holt led her team into the council chamber where centuries of power had been decided. The members who once mocked her now stared in silence. The beast entered, its claws scraping against the floor, its body too large for the chamber, yet it did not rage. It stood behind the humans like a sentinel, a living reminder of what had changed. Holt raised her voice, steady and clear. She spoke of how humanity did not seek to rule through fear but through understanding, how survival on Earth had taught them that every predator could be studied, every danger could be faced, and that sometimes even the most terrifying enemy could become an ally if given respect instead of only fear. The council tried to respond, but their words faltered. The evidence stood behind Holt, breathing, watching, unshakable. For generations, the beast had been the measure of impossibility, and now it stood tamed not with chains or force, but with a bond born of courage. Dr. Elias presented records of behavior, patterns of communication, and the marks the beast had carved into stone that he believed were deliberate signals. Mira and Kalen displayed data showing how the creature had responded to cooperation rather than aggression. Marcus simply stood silent with his rifle lowered, his scarred body proof that survival was not theory but truth lived in flesh. One elder of the council finally rose, his voice trembling as he admitted what none wished to say. Humanity had changed the balance. Where others saw only barriers, they saw challenges. Where others fled, they endured. Where others sought to dominate, they adapted. The galaxy had underestimated them, and now could never again look upon them as fragile newcomers. Humanity had proven they were a species born not to bow before terror but to walk beside it. As Holt finished her speech, The beast released a low rumble that shook the chamber yet carried no threat. It was a sound of acknowledgement, almost of alliance. The council bowed their heads, not out of ceremony but out of a fear now transformed into respect. The humans had walked into the jaws of the impossible and returned leading it by choice, not by chains. No one laughed now. No one doubted now. The galaxy understood that humanity's strength was not in weapons alone, but in the unyielding will to turn enemies into companions, to find light within the deepest shadow. When the chamber emptied, the humans stood together, their mission complete. Outside the viewing ports of the station, millions of citizens across the galaxy watched and whispered of the new truth. A single human expedition had tamed the beast, of Valar Prime. The galaxy would never be the same again, the legacy of the beast. The galaxy did not forget what it had witnessed because the image of a human walking beside the beast of Valar Prime became more than a story. It became a symbol whispered across stations and colonies, across worlds where fear once ruled, and where courage now found a new name. Children of alien races spoke in hushed tones about the humans who made a monster bend not through violence, but through respect. Soldiers studied the footage of the proving ground, trying to understand how a fragile species had stood in the storm and survived when entire empires had failed. Scholars argued about the meaning of the claw marks left in stone by the beast, and whether they were the beginnings of a language. Yet through all of it, one truth remained clear. Humanity had changed the measure of the impossible. On Earth, the return of the expedition was met not with cheering crowds or parades, but with quiet pride. Families held their loved ones close. Leaders spoke of unity, and the people simply continued forward as they always had. Humanity did not boast, for survival had never been about glory. It had always been about moving one step further than yesterday. The beast itself was transported not in chains but in companionship, following willingly, a living monument to the resilience of the human spirit. Where it walked, silence followed. But that silence was no longer made of terror. It was made of awe. Commander Holt stood before her team one final time and spoke of the meaning of what they had done. She reminded them that it was not strength alone that had saved them, nor cleverness, nor technology. It was the refusal to break, the choice to see something more than an enemy in the eyes of the beast, and the will to stand together even when betrayal and death surrounded them. Marcus nodded with quiet respect. Elias smiled with the wonder of discovery. Mira and Kalen clasped hands, knowing their work had been more than survival. It had been creation of trust. They were no longer explorers on foreign soil. They were the ones who had proven that fear itself could be tamed in the Galactic Council. No one laughed at humanity anymore. Some feared them, some admired them, some envied them, but none dismissed them. Where once they were called fragile, they were now called unyielding. Where once they were mocked as reckless, they were now remembered as the ones who walked with the beast. The universe understood that humanity's strength was not only in war, but in their endless ability to turn despair into hope and to find kinship even in the heart of nightmares. And so the tale spread from world to world and from mouth to mouth. It became not only the story of humans and a Deathworld beast, but the story of survival, of trust, of a truth larger than fear. In time, the galaxy came to see humanity not as newcomers, but as a force that changed the very fabric of possibility. They had entered the Deathworld as prey and returned as partners of its greatest predator. The mark they left would never fade, and the shadow of the beast beside them would remind all who doubted that humanity's spirit could not be broken. The end.